The morning began like any other. Birds chirped with mechanical cheerfulness outside. The Thompson family's modest home on Walnut Lane. The sun filtered lazily through the blinds as Naya stirred her coffee. Watching her two children chase each other through the hallway, Malik had taken the early shift at the hospital. She welcomed the quiet before the buzz of errands and sibling squabbles began. When the doorbell rang at 8:37 a.m., Nia assumed it was the grocery delivery she'd forgotten about. She opened. The door barefoot, robe cinched at her waist, expecting a box of cereal and almond milk. Instead, she found a coffin. Not a box, not a crate, a full wooden coffin. Unmarked, aside from a faded shipping sticker pressed unevenly on the lid. She stared at it, heart-skipping. The delivery truck was already reversing down the street, its driver not sparing a second glance. A breeze picked up, brushing against her arms. Naya didn't reach for the coffin. Her body refused. The kids were still laughing inside, unaware. She squatted slowly and examined the label. The address was correct. 1047 Walnut Lane. But where the name should have been, there was only a black smudge, as if erased or never printed. She called out over her shoulder, voice tight. "Aid and Ava, go upstairs for a bit, okay?" "Why?" came the answer in unison. "Just do it, please." The sound of footsteps retreating upstairs gave her a sliver of focus. Her hands hovered over the coffin lid. She wasn't sure why she opened it. Maybe curiosity, maybe fear, maybe something deeper, something primal that whispered, "This isn't an accident." The hinges creaked. Inside lay no body, no silk padding. Instead, a rusted chain, coiled like a serpent, thick, old, and dust-covered, and resting beside it, a small leather-bound ledger, torn at the corners. The cover was stained dark brown blood or something. Pretending to be, Nia recoiled. Her breath caught, her hand flying to her mouth. The morning light no longer felt warm. Her stomach churned. She backed away, phone trembling in her hand as she dialed Malik. No answer. He'd be on rounds now. She tried again. Voicemail, still trembling. She called the non-emergency police line. "Yes, I just received ... something at my house. It's a coffin." Her voice shook. "No, I'm not joking. The dispatcher promised to send someone." Nia sat on the porch steps, robe wrapped tight around her. Her neighbors walked dogs, watered lawns. No one looked her way. Walnut Lane was the kind of neighborhood where everyone smiled but never spoke unless they had to. 30 minutes later, a squad car pulled up. An officer, white, mid-40s, board stepped out. Badge gleaming in the sun, she led him to the coffin without a word. He looked inside, brow furrowing. "That's unusual." "Unusual," Nia said, her voice rising. "It's a coffin. A chain and what looks like a blood-stained journal. It's delivered to my house." He glanced around. "Ma'am, do you have any enemies?" She blinked. "Is that your theory? That someone sent us a coffin as a prank?" "Well, it wouldn't be. The first time teenagers pulled something. Halloween's not far off." Naya stepped back. "It's July," the officer shrugged. "Could be a wrong address. I'll file a report. You should contact the shipping company. Might have just been a mix-up. And if it wasn't, it didn't." Answer, he closed the coffin, wiped his hands on his pants, and left a card. "Call if anything else happens." As his cruiser disappeared, Nia stood frozen on the steps. The wood grain of the coffin caught the light, and for a moment, she thought she saw initials carved into the lid faint, like something someone tried to sand away. Inside the house, Ava's voice echoed, "Mommy, can we come down now?" Nia didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the initials, her breath shallow. The wind stirred again. This wasn't just a mistake. Something had been delivered to her door. Something that had once been buried and now, for reasons unknown, clawed its way back to the surface. She looked up the street, where the delivery truck had vanished. Somewhere someone knew why this coffin had come here, and she intended to find out. Malik pulled into the driveway just after 1 p.m. His blue scrubs creased, shoulders heavy from the double shift. He noticed the coffin the second he stepped out. It hadn't moved. Still sat there on the porch like it belonged. like it had always belonged. He dropped his bag and took the steps 2 at a time. Nia. She opened the door before he could knock, her face pale, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. The porch radiated heat, but she was wrapped in a hoodie. "Please tell me this is a sick joke," said, gesturing toward the coffin. "I called the police," she murmured, leading him closer. "They came, they left." "What do you mean?" "They left. Filed it under possible mistaken delivery, said maybe it was kids playing a prank." He stared at her, then down at the coffin. "What's inside? See for yourself." With a deep breath, Malik opened the lid. The chain had shifted slightly, just enough to look like it had uncoiled on its own. The links were thick, uneven. Iron, stained black with time. The journal lay beside it, its cover darkened and cracked. He picked it up with 2 fingers. "Jesus," he muttered. This looks old. There's a name scribbled on the inside cover. Could barely make it out. He flipped to the first page, careful not to tear the brittle paper. Handwritten entries filled it, small looping cursive, smudged with age. Nia pointed to a line. "There, bottom right." He squinted. "Property of Elijah Whitaker. 1856. He turned the next page. "Lists, names, numbers. Those are people," she whispered. "Names with prices beside them." He let the journal fall shut, anger flickering just beneath the surface of his tired eyes. "They sent us a plantation ledger, with a chain, in a coffin. And the cops think that's just kids playing?" Tried to explain. He looked right through me. Malik stormed back inside, snatched his phone from the kitchen counter, and redialed the number from the officer's card. He put the call on speaker. "Officer Denton," came the clipped voice. "This is Malik Thompson. You were at my house earlier today? About the coffin?" A pause. "Yes, sir. I did note the incident. What can I help you with?" "My wife received a historical slave ledger and a rusted chain in a coffin addressed to our house." "That's not a prank. That's a threat." "Sir, with all due respect, there's no explicit threat written anywhere. Unless you've received additional messages, is this what you need?" Malik snapped. "A noose? A burning cross?" "Sir." "Understand this is upsetting, but unless there's evidence of a crime, there is a crime. You just don't want to see it." The line went quiet. Then a measured response. "I'll make a note of your concerns. Let us know if anything else happens." The call ended. Malik stood frozen for a second before slamming the phone down. "They don't care," he said. "You could wake up with this whole house on fire and they'd still say it was a mix-up." Nia rubbed her temples. "So what do we do?" He glanced back out at the porch. "We document everything. We keep it all. Photos, names, anything we can find. Someone sent us a message. And what if it wasn't meant for us?" She asked softly. He looked at her eyes, narrowing. "Then we figure out who it was meant for and why it landed here." Outside. The late afternoon sun dipped low. Shadows stretched across the lawn, reaching for the porch like long, crooked fingers. Neither of them noticed the initials faintly etched beneath the ledger, only visible when the light hit just right. By Monday morning, the coffin was gone. Malik had borrowed a van from a friend and moved it into a rented storage unit outside town. Neither of them wanted it near the house, but Nia took photos before it left every angle, every scrape, every faint marking, especially the initials she'd finally seen in full. I.H. She spent the next 2 days calling every number on the delivery sticker. Took 6 transfers, 2 hang-ups, and a very persistent tone before a warehouse manager in South Cartersville finally picked up. "Yeah," he said, chewing something loudly in her ear. "That crate was tagged for destruction. We were clearing out a condemned site, old estate. Box didn't have a recipient. Just an address. We ship whatever's listed." "Who gave you the address?" she asked. "Ma'am, we don't get into that. We're contracted third party. It's all numbers and barcodes to us. But someone typed in my house, my street." The man sighed. "Sometimes people request drop-offs anonymously. Historical pieces, estate remnants. You'd be surprised what people don't want traced." He ended the call before she could ask more. That afternoon, she walked Ava to school. Aiden had gone ahead with friends, but now parents avoided eye contact or smiled a second too late. Conversations slowed when she passed. One woman nodded curtly, then turned away mid-sentence. At pickup, Mrs. Delaney, the PTA lead and queen of community potlucks, offered a hollow grin. "Heard you got quite the surprise," she said, clutching her tote bag. "Must have scared the daylights out of you." Nia met her gaze. "It did. Well, thank goodness it was just old junk. Could have been something worse." "Could have been anything," Nia said quietly. "It could have been someone trying to make a point." Mrs. Delaney's smile tightened. "We all just want things to go back to normal, you know?" Nia didn't reply. The silence between them felt like a wall slowly being built. That evening, the school board meeting was held. In the community hall, Malik stayed home with the kids. Nia went alone. The meeting droned on budgets, test scores, updates about next month's fall for until the floor opened to general discussion. An older man, balding with a flag pin on his lapel, stood to speak. "I don't mean to stir anything," he began, eyes scanning the crowd, "but I think we all value peace in this neighborhood. Safety, stability." A few murmurs of agreement. "Now, I don't know what's going on with all these rumors, or the objects showing up on porches, but I just want to say some folks bring trouble without even realizing it." Nia sat still, hands folded. He didn't look at her. Not directly. But everyone else did. Another parent leaned over and whispered, "Maybe this isn't the right neighborhood for everyone." The sentence struck like a slap. Not loud, not direct, but it echoed anyway. She stood before she realized she was standing. "Excuse me," she said, voice calm but trembling beneath. "Is someone suggesting my family doesn't belong here?" Silence. Mrs. Delaney cleared her throat. "Let's not turn this into something it's not." "No," Nia replied. "Let's call it what it is." Someone shifted in their seat. Another tapped a pen. But no one spoke. Nia sat back down slowly, feeling eyes on her like heat. She didn't speak again for the rest of the meeting, but neither did they. Outside, the air was heavy, the sky low and bruised. As she walked to her car, a folded slip of paper was wedged beneath the windshield wiper. One line, written in uneven pen. "Ask Grace at the library. She remembers." Nia stared at the note, heart racing. Someone knew something. And someone wanted her to keep going. The night air smelled of wood polish and cold metal. Malik had gone to retrieve the Coffin after. Nia showed him the note from the windshield. Neither of them said much as he parked in front of their house, headlights slicing through the dark. They worked in silence, lifting the lid once more under the yellow porch light. The chain sat as they'd left it. The ledger hadn't moved, but something had shifted. Nia ran her hand along the interior lining of the coffin. An uneven seam caught her attention. She picked at it with the edge of a key until a loose panel came away. Inside, folded and wrapped in plastic, was a letter, YELLOWED, brittle, edges curled. But the handwriting was steady and elegant, even in age. Malik read it aloud in a low voice. "My name is Isaac Hargrove. If you're reading this, I'm already gone. This is not a letter of apology. This is a ledger of truth. In the summer of 1929, I witnessed a lynching in this very town. A boy, 17, wrongfully accused. They never spoke his name again." Nia's breath caught. She reached for the letter. "They carved up the story, made him the villain, erased the ones who threw the rope. But I knew their names. I carry them in my blood and in my shame." At the bottom, in smaller, shakier script, was a list. 12 names, some crossed out in red, others circled. Nia read each one, her heart pounding harder with every familiar surname. Delaney, Whitaker, Denton. "I recognize at least 4 of these," she whispered. "That's the PTA president. One of the realtors, the officer who came here." Malik's jaw clenched. "This isn't just a relic, it's a map." Silence settled between them, thick, ancestral. "I can't stop thinking about what he wrote," Nia said, her voice small. "Carved up the story? That's what they do, isn't it? Tell it just wrong enough to keep it alive without guilt." Malik nodded, then added quietly, "Or tell it so wrong it disappears." She looked back down at Isaac's words. Each line carried weight, not just of memory, but of witness. This man hadn't tried to redeem himself. He'd documented horror so it couldn't be erased. "I think he meant for someone to find this," Malik said. "Not by mistake, not randomly. But why us?" He didn't answer. Inside, the kids were asleep. But the house no longer felt like a safe bubble. It felt like a house on top of something buried, and that thing was now knocking. They laid the letter beside the ledger, their hands trembling but sure. The past hadn't just shown up. It had returned with names, receipts, faces, and fire. "We can't keep this to ourselves," Naya said. "Not if they're still in power, still walking around like nothing happened." "You saw what they did." At the meeting, Malik warned, "You go after their names, they'll turn on us." "I'm not going after them," she said, eyes firm. "I'm telling the truth." The fireplace crackled behind them, low and steady. The chain, still curled inside the coffin, looked almost like it was listening later that night while Malik put the children to bed. Naya carefully scanned Isaac's letter and stored it on 3 separate drives. One she placed in the fireproof box with the birth certificates. One she uploaded to a private cloud. One she slid into an envelope labeled for Grace. As she sealed it, she thought about the name in the note. "Ask Grace at the library. She remembers. In the morning, she would find her." The library smelled of lemon oil, dust, and time. Nia stepped through the glass doors at precisely 9 a.m., envelope clutched to her chest. The sun outside already bore down with the kind of heat that made you sweat before you even started moving. But here, in the library's cool hush, it felt like the world had pressed pause. "May I help you?" asked the young woman at the front desk. Naya leaned in. "I'm looking for Grace. I was told she might still volunteer here." The woman hesitated, then gestured toward a reading alcove. "If she's here, she'll be down in archives, stairs in the back. She doesn't like being interrupted." Nia followed the directions into a quieter wing, past outdated encyclopedias and sagging wooden shelves, until she reached a creaky staircase with a flickering light overhead. The handrail was chipped. Air smelled older down here, like worn pages and forgotten voices. At the bottom stood a black woman in her late 70s, her salt and pepper hair wrapped in a blue scarf. Was organizing microfilm reels with the care of someone handling human remains. Nia approached slowly. "Grace?" Woman looked up, eyes sharp but kind. "Depends who's asking." "My name is Nia Thompson. Someone left me a note, said you might remember things this town forgot." Grace's expression didn't change, but her hands stopped moving. "Come," she said after a long beat. "Let's talk in truth." They sat at a table lit by a single yellow lamp. Nia opened the envelope and slid the copy of Isaac Hargrove's letter across. Grace didn't touch it. "I know that name," she said softly. "Knew it before the whiteout, before the libraries renovated and the papers went missing." "You knew Isaac?" "I was 6 when he died. He was a boy who smiled with his whole face. Always carried his books like they were treasure. My older brother played baseball with him." Grace finally reached for the letter, her fingers trembling slightly. As she read, her lips parted just a little, just enough for sorrow to leak out. "They said he attacked a girl," Grace whispered. "Said she screamed, and he ran. But I remember the night it happened. There was no scream, just the church. Bell ringing off time, and my father telling us to stay inside and lock the door." Nia swallowed. "You believe he was innocent?" "I know he was. And so did most of the folks who buried him in secret. But no one spoke his name after that. Not openly. They buried him twice, once in the ground and again in silence." Grace stood, pulled a ring of keys from her pocket, and opened a locked drawer beneath the microfilm reader. "They missed some things," she said. "Not many, but enough to know he lived." She handed Nia a reel marked Julio Agosto, 1929. They loaded it together. The machine buzzed to life. Nia turned the dial slowly. Headlines flashed by. "Boy found dead near tracks authorities say suicide." "Sheriff refutes rumors of mob activity." "Community holds quiet memorial no." "Family in attendance." And then a grainy photo. A boy in a white shirt, smiling. The caption read simply, Isaac Hargrove, 17. Nia stared at it, heart aching. He looked like Aiden, too young, too alive. This isn't history, she whispered. It's warning. It's grace. Nodded, truth isn't always buried. Sometimes it's just waiting for someone to come asking. They copied what they could. Newspaper clippings, photographs, fragments. Enough to begin stitching Isaac back into the fabric of the town he was torn from, as Nia prepared to leave. Grace placed a hand gently on hers. You're not alone, she said. But if you keep going, they'll try to make you feel like you are. Outside, the sky was overcast, as if mourning something long overdue. Nia stepped into the wind, Grace's words echoing. She didn't know who left the note, but she knew what she had no evidence, history, and a face. And that night, she and Malik would bring Isaac's voice into the light. The invitation came handwritten, tucked politely into the mailbox too. Days after Nia's visit to the library, we'd love to have you over for dinner this Friday. It's his neighbors getting to know each other. Warmly, Rebecca and Martin Henderson. Alik had raised an eyebrow when she showed it to him. You're never spoken more than 3 sentences to us. Exactly, Nia replied. Which means something's changed, he sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. We can go, but if this is some weird, let's make sure they're not dangerous kind of dinner. ... double. Quotes, NIA met his gaze. Then we'll smile, nod, and take note. Friday arrived too quickly. 6 p.m. sharp, they walked up the Hendersons' pristine steps. Nia wore a cream blouse, Malik a blazer. They practiced the right smiles in the mirror, just wide enough. Not too wide. Rebecca greeted them at the door with a glass of wine in hand. Her blonde bob was tucked behind one ear like it had been, styled just for them. Come in, come in. Dinner's almost ready. We're doing salmon, hope that's okay. The house smelled of rosemary and lemon. Too clean, too curated.
Oh.
Every surface gleamed like it had been disinfected of discomfort. Martin appeared moments later in a golf shirt, handshake firm and performative. Heard about that package? He said, nodding toward Malik. Hell of a thing? Yeah, Malik said flatly. Still is. They moved to the dining room. Napkins folded like origami birds. Wine refilled without asking. Conversation danced. Over local issues, the new gym opening, school fundraiser, traffic on 5th. Nothing anchored. Then came the pivot. So, Martin began, slicing his salmon delicately. Ack! Rebecca tells me you're from Atlanta? Originally, Nia replied. Martin smiled. City's changing fast, huh? All kinds of folks moving in now, Rebecca chimed in. It's be hard, though, watching neighborhoods lose their, character. Malik set his fork down slowly. Nia's jaw tensed. What character is that exactly? Rebecca blinked, then laughed too loudly. Oh no, I didn't mean, of course not. We're just joking, it's just ... Things feel so sensitive these days, don't they? Can't even laugh. Without offending someone? Martin leaned back, wine glass in hand. It's like the world forgot how to be civil. All this digging up of the past, statues, names, old stories. It's exhausting. Aren't we supposed to be moving forward? Nia's breath caught in her throat. She looked to Malik. His jaw was clenched. Funny thing, she said, voice cool. The past doesn't stay buried just because it's inconvenient. There was a silence. Then Martin chuckled. Look, no one here is racist, okay? We're all just trying to keep the peace. Malik stood abruptly. You mean the silence? Rebecca stood too, flustered. Wait, don't go. We're just talking. No, Nia said, rising with him. You're pretending. There's a difference. They left without dessert. Outside the night was cool, but Nia felt flushed. Her hands shook as they walked back to the car. I shouldn't have said anything, she muttered. Malik shook his head. No, you should have said more. In the distance, the sound of cicadas buzzed like static. Something was unraveling. The masks of politeness were the first to fall. The knock came just after dawn, 3 hard raps that jolted Nia from a half-sleep. She and Malik had stayed up late, their minds still wired from the Hendersons' dinner. They'd barely spoken after getting home, but both lay awake, staring. at the ceiling and silence. Malik met her at the base of the steps, eyes bloodshot, fists already clenched. They opened the door together. The coffin was back. It sat in the middle of their porch, like it had never left. But now it was desecrated. The lid had been spray-painted. In dripping, violent red, "Know your place." And beneath it, scrawled in crude block letters, a racial slur. Nia's breath left her body like it had been punched from her lungs. She staggered back into Malik, who steadied her with shaking hands. There was no note this time, no mystery, just hate bold and deliberate. Malik didn't speak. He simply pulled out his phone and dialed the police. By the time the squad car arrived, the sun was fully up. Kids biked past on the sidewalk. Curtains twitched across the street. Officer Denton returned. Same badge, same indifferent tone. "Well, that's concerning," he said, squinting at the slur like it was a smudge on his windshield. "Concerning?" Malik snapped. "All you've got?" Denton looked bored. "We'll file a report. It's probably some teenagers trying to stir things up." "With a coffin?" Nia said. "Spray-painted with hate speech?" "No fingerprints? No camera footage?" Denton shrugged. "Without evidence of a direct threat or physical harm, this doesn't rise to a criminal offense." Nia laughed bitterly. "So unless they set our house on fire, you won't act?" Denton shifted. "Try not to escalate things. We're escalating," Malik said, stepping forward. "Someone dumped a coffin on our porch and wrote a slur on it. We didn't do that." Denton raised his hands, backing away slightly. "Look, I get it. But unless we catch someone in the act—" "We did catch someone," Nia interrupted. "We caught the whole damn system looking the other way." It earned her a long, blank stare. "Call if anything changes." They watched the cruiser disappear down the street, same as last time. Back inside, Malik slammed the door so hard it rattled the windows. "That's it," he said. "We're leaving. I'll break the lease. I don't care. This place is sick." Nia didn't answer. He turned to her. "Nia, say something." She leaned against the wall, arms crossed over her chest. "If we leave now, what does that teach the kids? That we protected them, or that we ran from what's wrong instead?" Of facing it, his voice softened. "What if they come back?" "They will," she said quietly. "That's why we can't run. This isn't just happening to us. It's been happening long before we got here." Malik closed his eyes. "I'm tired, Nia." "I know," she said. "But maybe Isaac was tired too. And he still left us something." Up, lifting a corner of the spray-painted lid, Nia walked to the front window, staring out at the twisted mockery of a gift. She didn't know who sent it back, but she knew why. Because silence had been broken. Because truth had been named. A hesitant rhythm, like someone unsure they should be knocking at all. Malik opened the door to find an elderly black man standing on the porch, hands folded over a cane polished smooth with time. His face was worn, deep lines like etchings in bark, but his eyes were sharp. A flat cap sat low over thinning gray hair. "You don't know me," he said quietly, "but I know what you found." Malik stiffened. "Who are you?" "Names. Leland Chambers. Used to be the night janitor at the old courthouse. Retired now." He glanced behind Malik. "Is your wife home?" Nia appeared in the hallway, eyes narrowed with quiet curiosity. "May I come in for a minute?" Leland asked. "It won't take long." They exchanged a glance before stepping aside. Leland took a seat at the kitchen table, fingers trembling. As he removed a folded photo from his coat pocket, he laid it down. Group of young black boys, maybe a dozen of them, standing on a dirt road. All looking toward the camera, except one. "That's me," he said, tapping the smallest boy. And that his finger hovered over a tall, thin teenager in the back. "That's Isaac," Nia leaned in. "You knew him?" "Everyone did," Leland said. "Not personally, maybe, but enough to know he didn't deserve what happened." His voice lowered. "I was 8 the night it happened. My mama kept me close, but I saw the fire from our attic window, heard the dogs, heard the screaming, then the silence. It's what I remember most. The way it all just stopped." Malik sat. Across from him, arms folded tightly. "I worked maintenance in the courthouse for 40 years, Leland continued. Swept floors, emptied bins, mopped up what people didn't want seen, and sometimes ... I saw what they meant to hide. He reached into his coat again and pulled out a small leather notebook. This is a copy of the property log. After the lynching, the sheriff back then, Whitaker ordered Isaac's body never be entered in the town's death records. Said it would stain the books, told the clerk to write it off as unknown transient. I watched her do it. He looked at Nia. You're not wrong. They buried him twice. First his body, then the truth. Hey, come forward now, Malik asked, because Leland said, voice tight, you've rattled the bones they buried, and now they want silence. He pointed out the window toward the storage unit where the coffin had come from. That warehouse? It's being demolished next week. They rushed the permits. Town council didn't even vote. They're erasing it all, every ledger, every file. Nia's hands clenched. How do you know? I saw the order, he said. And I took this. Before they shredded the rest, stood slowly, his knees cracking. I'm too old to be afraid anymore. Dud you. You've still got time. Be careful. As he stepped back into the morning light, Nia looked down at the photo again. At Isaac's unreadable expression, they had one chance before the past was buried forever. The town hall sat at the edge of Main Street, nestled between the post office and an old Masonic building. The brick was chipped, the flag outside faded. From too many seasons of pretending all was well, Nia stood just inside the double doors, holding a folder tight against her chest. Inside it were copies of Isaac's letter, Leland's notes, the old death ledger, and one last thing, a photo of Isaac Hargrove, 17. Smiling on a summer day before someone decided his life wasn't worth telling the truth about. The crowd was already gathering, and there, in the second row, sat Officer Denton, arms folded like a closed gate. Malik touched her elbow. We can still walk out, Nia said. It's time they'll hear everything. At exactly 6 p.m., she stepped up to the mic. Thank you all for coming, she began, voice tight but steady. I wasn't invited to speak tonight. I requested it, because something happened to my family. And what's worse, what's far more dangerous is how many people wanted us to ignore it. A ripple moved through the room. She opened the folder and pulled out Isaac's letter. This is the voice of a boy who died. In 1929, she said, lifting the paper. A boy who was lynched, erased from records, and whose only crime was being born black in this town. The kind of silence that means people are holding their breath not because they're shocked, but because they already knew. They just didn't want to be reminded. Nia read every word. Isaac's confession, his fear, the list of names, the ones who watched, the ones who cheered, the ones whose grandchildren sat in the audience now, shifting uncomfortably. When she finished, no one clapped, but no one interrupted her either. Then, in the back, a voice rose. That boy could have been me. Everyone turned. A young man stepped forward, no older than 25, wearing a black hoodie and a hard gaze. My name's Jameer Russell, he said. My family's lived here for generations. We've seen it all: whispers, threats, polite exclusion, dressed up as zoning laws. But this is the truth we've been waiting to say out loud. He turned to Nia. Thank you. A few people began to nod. An older woman wiped her eyes. But then a man stood near the side wall, raised voice raised. This is ancient history. We're not responsible for what our great-grandparents did. Jameer stepped up, facing him without flinching. No one's asking for guilt, he said. We're demanding honesty and accountability. You can't move forward when you're whole. House is built on denial. The room fractured, murmurs, tension, shame, defiance. But Nia didn't shrink. I'm not leaving, she said, and I'm not going silent. We are building something here. And it starts with the truth. The meeting ended without a clear resolution. You've got allies now, he said, more than you know, as they walked home that night under a burnt-orange sky. Nia felt something new settling in her chestnut piece. Not yet. But resolve, the coffin hadn't broken them. It had woken something. The list had always been there, buried in Isaac's letter, circled in trembling ink.
Oh.
But now it lived in Nia's mind like a rhythm she couldn't shake. She spent her mornings cross-referencing names at the courthouse, digging through public records, property deeds, and family registries. Her evenings were quieter, printing, highlighting, underlining, filling the kitchen table with names that were no longer just old ink. Power still breathing today. Whitaker, Delaney, Benton, Denton. They weren't just surnames. Street names, committee chairs, real estate barons, police chiefs. What startled her most was how easily it came together, how little they'd hidden it. The history wasn't erased. It was simply reframed, renamed. She published a blog post titled "The Blood Beneath Our Foundations." It linked Isaac's lynching to prominent local families, including sitting school board members and 2 councilmen. She included citations, dates, photos, nothing sensational, just facts. Within 2 hours, her inbox flooded. Some were supportive, quiet thank yous. Messages from teachers, nurses, even a pastor who'd suspected but never dared to say. But there was backlash too. You're creating division. Digging up ghosts doesn't help the living. You'll regret this. 2 days later, Malik came home early, his hospital ID clipped upside down to his jacket. He dropped it on the counter without a word. "They're reviewing my conduct," he said. "Someone sent my supervisor a copy of your post. Said I was fueling racial hostility." Nia's chest tightened. "They can't fire you over this. They don't have to. They just have to find a reason that sounds acceptable." She wanted to scream, but instead she picked up the ledger. "Then we push harder." That weekend, Jameer organized a peaceful sit-in at City Hall, just 20 people, all local. Holding signs and reading names aloud, both the lynched and the leaders. They didn't chant. They didn't block traffic. But when Jameer refused to move from the steps after curfew, they arrested him. Disorderly conduct. He didn't resist. But the photo, his head bowed, hands cuffed, made headlines anyway. The town split down the middle. At Sunday service, Nia and Malik were met with silence. Some pews they once shared sat empty now. Others shifted away slightly, the way people do when they want you to know you've made them uncomfortable afterward. One older woman approached Nia, quietly. "My grandfather was a sheriff here," she said, pressing a folded newspaper into her palm. "I think you're right. I think we've been pretending too long." Nia nodded, but the weight in her chest didn't ease. For every whisper of support, there was a slammed door, a cold glance, a passive-aggressive email from Aiden's teacher about discipline issues. Truth, she was learning, had a cost, but it also had momentum, and once it started moving, didn't stop for anyone. The article went live on a Thursday morning. Grace had connected them to a journalist at the Sentinel, a national investigative outlet known for its work on racial injustice. The piece was thorough. Isaac's letter, Leland's testimony, the town's history, and Nia's quiet war against silence. It ran with the title, "The Ledger, the Coffin, and the Town That Forgot a Lynching." Within hours it spread. First on social media, then the evening news. Comment sections filled with outrage, disbelief, solidarity, and venom. Some called Nia a hero, others called her a liar, some called her far worse. The phone didn't stop ringing. Jameer's inbox overflowed with interview requests. News vans parked outside the courthouse and down the street from their home. Long black cords trailing over cracked sidewalks by nightfall. Nia stood at the window, watching camera flashes blink. In the distance, like heat lightning, Malik wrapped his arms around her waist. "You did it," he whispered. She didn't answer. She was still waiting for the other shoe to drop. At 10:13 a.m., a loud bang rattled the house. Followed by a whoosh of heat and light, Malik was the first to the window. His scream was instinct. "The Carrit's on fire." Nia was all ready. Running, she yanked open the front door, barefoot on the porch, as flames consumed their Honda in the driveway. The fire danced bright and vicious, crackling with a rage that wasn't natural. The kids came down seconds later, terrified, eyes wide in the dark. Malik pulled them all back just as a tire exploded in a burst of sparks. The fire department arrived. In 6 minutes. But it only took 4 for everything they owned in that car documents. Aiden's science project. Ava's dance shoes to be reduced to blackened steel and melted glass. A small gift had been left behind, a scorched matchbook. Tucked under the windshield wiper with the initials I.W. Isaac Whitaker. The same name from the ledger. Same bloodline still living in town. Officer Denton showed up again, clipboard in hand. Could have been electrical, he offered too casually. Malik laughed bitterly. You ever see an engine set itself? On fire from the outside? We'll investigate, Denton said, not looking anyone in the eye that night. Nia sat on the floor with her children, wrapped in blankets. Ava clung to her like a lifeline. I don't want to stay here anymore, her daughter whispered. Nia stroked her hair. I know, baby, but if we leave, who tells the truth? Jameer came by the next morning, his eyes dark with exhaustion, but his voice was steady. We've got people forming a defense fund. Legal help. Security cameras. You're not alone anymore. Grace delivered a care package later that day. Inside was food, a handwritten prayer, and a laminated copy of the article. You gave Isaac a voice, she said. Now we give him a vigil. Plans began that night. Flyers were made. Calls were placed. They would not hide. They would not run. They would stand in the light, even if it burned. They brought the coffin out at dawn. The sky was still gray and half asleep, the air thick with dew. Malik drove the rental van slowly through empty streets, Jameer in the passenger seat, Nia in the back with the coffin. Her hand rested gently on the lid, once defiled, now polished clean. A crowd was already gathering at the edge of the town square. Black, brown, white young faces and old ones. Teachers, postal workers, grocery clerks, quiet neighbors hood. Once looked away, and new voices who had decided not to anymore. The square hadn't seen a gathering like this in years. Not for a parade, not for a speech, not for truth. Grace waited by the fountain, her scarf fluttering gently in the morning wind. She nodded once as the van stopped. Then together, they began to carry it. The coffin was lighter than before. Maybe it just felt that way. They placed it gently at the center of the square, atop a raised wooden platform built overnight by a crew of volunteers. Nia stepped forward and began taping copies of Isaac's letter to the lid, smoothing the pages. Flat with steady fingers, Malik laid down Leland's notes. Jameer added the printout of the article. And finally, Nia unrolled the long white canvas she'd spent the last 3 nights working on. 12 names. Written in black ink. Isaac Hargrove, George Delaney, Ruth Carter, Elijah Whitaker, dozens more. Followed some known, many only remembered by family stories or fading gravestones. The canvas was wrapped around the coffin like a shroud and a banner. By mid-morning, the crowd had tripled. Some held candles, others held hands. When Nia stepped up to the microphone, her voice was clear, not loud, just enough. This coffin was meant to silence us, she said, but today it speaks. Today we carry the names that were buried not to shame, but to reckon, to mourn, to remember. She looked around at the crowd. This town is not just bricks and history books. It's the stories we choose to tell, and the ones we choose no longer to ignore. A hush settled. Grace stepped beside her, lighting the first candle. Others followed. In silence, the flame passed from hand to hand, a sea of flickering light. No speeches, no chants, just presence, just names, just memory. When the sun began to set, Nia walked to the coffin one last time. She placed a bouquet of fresh magnolias on top white petals, trembling in the golden light. Then, gently, she laid her hand on the lid and whispered, "You were never forgotten." Aiden and Ava stood nearby, holding hands. For the first time. In weeks, they looked calm, not unafraid, but steady. The vigil lasted through the evening. Some stayed all night, and in the morning, someone no one ever found out who nailed a brass plaque to the platform. Let this coffin be a mirror. Let us see what we've buried, who we must become. A week later, the mayor announced a formal investigation into Isaac Hargrove's death and the town's buried racial history. Some people protested. Some denied, but many more began to listen. The coffin was never removed. It became a place where people left letters, flowers, apologies, a sacred, uncomfortable, beautiful reminder, not just of death, but of reckoning and renewal.
Subscribe and press the bell icon so that you never miss the amazing video.